She was fixing broken targets until she became the one hitting bullseyes. Her shot didn't just ring across the range. It echoed across command channels. Before we dive in, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for stories inspired by truth, the kind they don't put in training manuals. Camp Redstone was no stranger to precision. It trained the kind of shooters who didn't flinch at sandstorms, who could hit a moving tire at 1,600 meters, and who wore the silence of a confirmed kill like a badge. So when a civilian contractor named Rowan Jex arrived, no ribbon rack, no salute, no known unit. Nobody looked twice. She wore dusty tan coveralls with a stitch name patch that had faded to white. She carried a wrench kit in one hand and a clipboard in the other. No weapon, no insignia, just a quiet nod to the gate guard and a signature on a clipboard no one questioned. Maintenance crew, someone muttered. For the next 4 days, she kept to herself, adjusted the steel targets on the long-range lanes, calibrated distance sensors, changed shredded flag, tapes that flapped in the wind like warnings no one read. The SEAL team at Range Delta paid her no attention. Why would they? She didn't wear the suit. She didn't speak the language. She didn't exist in the comms. Until day 5. Until the bolt jammed on lane 12. It was Staff Sergeant Gron's M2010 ESR. A finicky beast, prone to feeding issues under Redstone's heat. He grumbled, looked over, and barked, "Hey, fix it. This your problem." She walked over, eyes half-lidded behind scratched ballistic glasses, and knelt beside the rifle. Her hands moved too naturally, too familiar. She cleared the jam without a word, then adjusted the rear aperture by exactly 0.6 mils. Gron raised an eyebrow. "That's not in the manual," he said. She didn't look up. "Neither is the crosswind you're about to miss." She stood and walked back toward the shadows under the shade tent. Gron fired. The round struck dead center. No wind drift. No margin. And now people started to notice. By midday, she was called up to assist with weapon diagnostics. "Just for today," the lieutenant said. "They like her hands." But when she stepped on a lane 12 again, this time there was a case waiting for her. Not a wrench kit. A rifle. The range officer cleared his throat. "Unofficial challenge," he muttered. "SEALs want to see if the fix-it girl can fire." Rowan didn't argue. She knelt, checked the rifle, rejected it, picked her own from a storage rack, an older Remington 700, iron sights only. The SEALs chuckled. Great. She brought a museum piece. She lined up at the 1,500-meter mark. No gloves, no breathing drills, just 3 slow seconds of silence. Then, crack. First gong dropped. Crack. Second plate spun. Crack. Final shot broke the target post clean in half. Nobody laughed now. In the operations tent nearby, command watched in real time. The system pinged with her ID. Rowan Jex, civilian armorer, clearance level Delta Gamma. Restricted. Colonel Baines stared at the screen. "Who authorized a range time?" No one answered. He turned to his aide. "I want a record. All of it. Right now." And at that moment, the rest of Camp Redstone had no idea they'd just seen a ghost with steel in her hands. By the time the last plate fell on lane 12, the chatter at Camp Redstone had changed tone. The maintenance girl was no longer background noise. She had become a ripple in a place that hated disruptions. Colonel Baines didn't like ripples. He leaned over the data terminal, eyes fixed on the screen displaying Rowan Jex. Clearance level, Delta Gamma. Attached department, unspecified. Status, active, pending. "Pending what?" he muttered. The aide next to him stammered, "Sir, we've never had a Delta Gamma civilian on the range. That clearance doesn't even belong to training personnel." Baines narrowed his eyes. "Then why is she here?" They pulled her personnel file. It was only 1 page. A single line. Rowan Jex, civilian liaison, assigned under Department 52G, decommissioned. No photo. No service dates. No supervisor. Just a stamp. Access restricted. "I want a copy of every internal memo with her name on it," Baines barked. "Past 10 years. The aide hesitated. "Sir, Department 52G is blacklisted. It doesn't officially exist." Baines' silence was louder than any reprimand. Meanwhile, on the far side of the base, Rowan walked the perimeter of the range with her gear kit slung low. Not a single soldier approached her, not since the shot, not since the wind chose her side. Inside the mess tent, the SEALs had changed their jokes to whispers. You see how she adjusted that, Bull? She read the Mirage shift without even checking the screen. Did you notice she never blinked before each shot? One of them, the youngest, spoke what the others wouldn't. She shoots like someone who trained us. That night, Rowan was assigned quarters. Not in civilian housing, but in the vacant East Barracks. She accepted without question. No complaints. No questions asked. But she didn't sleep. She sat on the lower bunk, methodically cleaning the rifle she borrowed. The same Remington 700 the SEALs had laughed at. Only now, the stock had been subtly modified. Not in the way amateurs tinker, but like someone who knew how to shave milliseconds off chamber cycles. From outside, a flashlight beamed past her window. Voices. Quiet, clipped. Then a knock. She opened the door. It was the base psychologist, Dr. Ellie Varn. "I'm told you're a mystery," Varn said, arms folded. Rowan nodded. "I'm told you ask questions." Varn smiled slightly. "Mind if I try?" Rowan stepped aside. The session was short, but by the end of it, Varn had stopped taking notes. "You're not here for diagnostics. You're here for verification." Rowan finally spoke in a full sentence. "There's a program," she said. "It didn't make it into the Pentagon's archives, but it made it into the ground." Varn blinked. "You're talking about Project Ashlock." Rowan didn't confirm, but she didn't deny it either. Varn whispered, "That was buried after Kandahar. Only 6 names were ever tied to it, and 3 are dead." Rowan set the cleaned rifle down. "Then I guess I'm the 4th ghost." Back at Ops, Bain stared at an encrypted file just unlocked by a security override from Washington. The file was labeled Ashlock, in no operational, observer number 3. There was a grainy image attached. Rowan Jex, in uniform, but not U.S. Army. No patches, no branch, just a woman crouched behind a wall in what looked like an abandoned foreign embassy. One knee down, one eye through a scope. Date, March 2007. Location, redacted. The file closed itself after 60 seconds. And Baines realized something chilling. She wasn't back to train. She was back because something had been reactivated. By the next morning, Rowan was already at the range. Alone. No orders had been given, no appointment logged. But when the range officer showed up at 0600, she was already at lane 12, reorganizing the spotting mats and resetting steel targets with military precision. He didn't question it. Back at operations, Colonel Baines stood in front of a locked file cabinet that hadn't been opened in 14 years. It took 2 keys and a fingerprint. His and someone in Washington whose name wasn't listed in the staff directory. Inside were 6 classified files. One had already been redacted to ashes. The one marked Observer Number 3 had one phrase written in red ink. "Do not contact. Will initiate on return." The meaning was clear now. Rowan wasn't recalled. She had returned on her own terms. Meanwhile, word of the incident at the range had traveled. Training command at Fort Bragg. Special activities in Langley. Even a joint intel liaison in Stuttgart had pinged the base overnight with a single-line message. "Confirm visual on Jex." No one replied. And yet, her presence was undeniable. Inside the mess hall, soldiers whispered, "She's not here to train. She's tracking something." Someone, Staff Sergeant Graun, the same sniper who mocked her rifle 2 days earlier, had started checking the names on the base manifest. She wasn't on it, but her access badge opened doors as didn't. He noticed one more thing. She never ate in the cafeteria, never stayed in the civilian quarters, never called anyone. And yet, she was never off the grid. At noon, a coded transmission hit Redstone's internal network. A signal, low band, analog, almost undetectable, buried in the surveillance feed of Range Delta. Rowan caught it. She was sitting beneath a camouflage netting, cleaning her rifle again when the feed stuttered. It lasted half a second, but her eyes snapped up instantly. She pulled a tiny receiver from her bag, tuned it manually, and recorded the pulse. The pattern was unmistakable. 4 dots, 3 dashes, 1 dot. Morse code. The call sign, OB3. Observer 3. Her. She stood, walked to the center of the range, and left her rifle on the ground. Just a rifle. No note. No tags. Then she walked straight toward the admin wing. Every camera caught it. Colonel Baines was in the middle of a call with SOCOM when his monitor pinged. Live feed. Rowan Jex, admin corridor 3. He froze. "I need you to repeat that," said the voice on the phone. Baines ignored it, because Rowan had just walked into the command hallway that required 3 access levels and no escorts. And she did it like she'd never left. She reached the briefing room, turned the handle. The door was locked, so she waited, didn't knock, didn't move, just waited until it opened from the inside. The person who opened it wasn't part of Redstone's staff. It was General Cass, retired. He hadn't been seen on base in years. Rowan looked at him once and said only one thing. "It's back." Cass didn't ask what. He knew. They both did. Inside the conference room, lights dimmed. A console powered up from deep standby. Rowan inserted a chip the size of a thumbnail. The screen lit up with old blueprints. Operation Ashlock. Reference mode. Version 1.17. Cass whispered, "We sealed this." Rowan didn't look at him. Someone unsealed it. The terminal buzzed. One line appeared. Target reacquired. In motion. Cass's hands trembled. Rowan turned to him. "If you want this buried again, you'll have to bury me too." General Cass locked the door behind him. He didn't sit. The room had no guards, no aides. Just him and Rowan Jex, and a console blinking with the digital remains of a program that had once been disavowed at the highest levels of government. Cass paced. "Rowan, when we shut Ashlock down, we buried everything. Every signature, every code book, every handler. Nothing was supposed to remain." Rowan was calm. Something did. Cass paused. "Are you saying someone's running the protocol?" Rowan didn't answer directly. Instead, she pulled a folded slip of paper from her inner jacket pocket. It looked like an old clearance pass, but the date was 3 days ago. "It was scanned at the Polish border," she said. "Then in Kazakhstan. Then Ankara. All within 72 hours. Cass's face darkened. "That's the path." Rowan nodded. "There's one left," she said. "And they've reactivated." Cass whispered, "Unit 9. Flashback. 13 years earlier. A convoy in flames on the outskirts of Jalalabad. 6 shadows pulled from wreckage. One of them, silent, eyes covered. Marked U9. Ashlock's most dangerous asset. Designed not for war, but for precision. No uniforms. No chains of command. Just raw calculation. It had taken a hidden order from 4 countries to shut Unit 9 down. Now, they were moving again. Back in present day, Camp Redstone was on edge. Rowan's name had been pulled from every database, yet no one dared ask her to leave. No one wanted to admit they couldn't track her, couldn't stop her. Inside the barracks, whispers turned to quiet reverence. She wasn't an operator. She was something else. An observer. And observers don't fire unless the world is about to. At 0200, Rowan was seen walking the north perimeter. Again alone. She paused near the old firing mound, where the base's first range had once been before it was buried by bureaucracy and gravel. There, under moonlight, she dug a gloved hand into the dirt, pulled out a single item, a coin, black, stamped with the number 9. Cass later found her in the armory. The lights were off, but she had already unlocked Vault C. The code hadn't been used in a decade. "What are you hoping to do, Rowan?" She looked up slowly. "I'm not here to stop Unit 9. Cass blinked. "Then what?" She inserted the coin into a slot hidden in the vault's 3rd drawer. Click. A panel opened. Inside was a metal case. Heavy, marked only by an old Ashlock sigil, burned in reverse. Rowan looked at Cass. "I'm here because I'm the one who trained them." Far across the world, a private satellite feed from an old Ashlock substation flickered. Inside, a figure stood in front of a glass board with target photos arranged like a forgotten chess game. One name was circled twice. Rowan Jex. The screen behind the figure flashed red. "Contact RE established. Observer 3. The figure smiled and reached for a bag that hadn't been opened since Kandahar. Inside, a second coin, stamped 9. The room was dead silent as Rowan held the coin. General Cass looked pale. You trained Unit 9? That's classified at Tier 0. Even I. You weren't supposed to know, Rowan cut in. Only 2 people ever knew the full list. One of them is dead. The other is talking to you right now. Cass leaned against the vault wall. He had been a general for 20 years. But nothing had prepared him for this. Ashlock had always been more than a program. It was a doctrine, a silent, off-record initiative built on precision assassination and predictive warfare. It used artificial intelligence long before the public ever heard of it. But AI wasn't the core. Humans were. Humans trained to read data like instincts, breathe in environments like maps, and move like shadows. Unit 9 wasn't just trained. They were sculpted, and Rowan Jex had been the sculptor. Back at Camp Redstone, a classified alert triggered in the base's secondary operations center. Unauthorized satellite ping, source, Ashlock legacy node, inactive. The text didn't understand what it meant. But one man did. Major Kessler, now liaison to Homeland Black Sites, was patched in via secure call. He saw the screen, paused, then whispered, "She's making contact." Elsewhere on base, Sergeant Gron had begun his own investigation. He had watched Rowan ever since the range incident. Something about her precision, her silence, haunted him. He requested footage from the central tower, the only feed that didn't loop. He found her walking at dawn to the old radio tower. Alone. Again, she stopped at the base of the structure, knelt, and seemed to place something into the ground. He froze the footage, zoomed. It was the black coin, buried in the dirt like a beacon. Back in the vault, Rowan pulled the old case open. Inside, a compact radio transmitter reinforced against signal trace, still humming with cold light. Cass stared. "I thought they destroyed that." Rowan shook her head. "They destroyed the copies. I kept the original." She pressed a button. A soft pulse emitted, barely audible. Seconds later, the console nearby came to life. A message appeared. Received. Unit 9 en route. 6 hours out. Cass's heart sank. "They're coming here." Rowan stood, face unreadable. "They're not enemies." "Not yet." "Then why now?" She didn't hesitate. "They lost their handler in Belarus. They're running on reflex. They're looking for the only voice they remember." "You." She nodded. "And if I don't speak to them first, someone else will." Thousands of miles away, in a nondescript European field office, 3 operatives boarded an unmarked military transport jet. Their faces were unreadable, their movements identical. They moved with rhythm, as if their steps had been drilled into them years ago. Because they had. Their only words. Reuniting. At Redstone, Rowan made her way to the abandoned comms tower. She stood beneath the rusted dish, the black coin back in her hand. Cass followed close behind. "If you're wrong." "I'm not," she said quietly. "But if I am, then you'll have less than 4 minutes to evacuate the southern quadrant." Cass stared at her and saw the same woman from the Jalalabad photo. The same stance, the same calm. But now, the mission was personal, and the ghosts she had trained were coming home. The Redstone runway hadn't seen an unmarked military plane in years. But at 5:42 a.m., one appeared on the horizon, low, silent, and fast. It didn't send a transponder. It didn't request clearance. It just landed. 3 figures stepped out. No insignia, no ranks, just black uniforms and perfectly synchronized movements. Observers in the tower didn't know what to report. The logbooks had no protocol for ghosts returning from the dead. Rowan watched them from the catwalk of the old comms tower. She didn't flinch. General Cass stood beside her, breath short. "You're sure they'll listen?" "They're not here for a fight," she replied. "They're here for grounding. They've been adrift too long." On the tarmac, the 3 operatives stopped at the edge of the ramp. Then, without speaking, they turned their heads upward, toward the tower, toward her. Unit 9 had come home. Flashback, 12 years earlier. A cold basement beneath an embassy annex. 3 recruits sat cross-legged, eyes blindfolded. Rowan walked the circle, not yelling, whispering. "Your identity is not your name. It's your intention. When you lose everything else, intention is all that remains." She had stripped them down, emotionally, psychologically, then rebuilt them. Now, they had returned. and she was their last intention. At Base HQ, emergency protocols were quietly being written. Cass had instructed the staff, do not engage. Observe. Log. Do not interrupt. But the Pentagon was already watching. The Ashlock terminal in D.C. flickered to life for the first time in 11 years. Analysts scrambled to interpret the real-time uplink. "Ma'am," said one young officer, "Redstone is offline from Central Command override." The general on screen looked grim. "Let it run. If she loses them, we'll need to strike." Back at the tower, Rowan climbed down the final steps. She walked, unarmed, onto the runway. No guards, no rifles, just silence. The three operatives stood like statues. Then the middle one, taller, broad-shouldered, stepped forward. He raised his hand slowly and revealed something, a second black coin, identical to hers. He extended it. "Observer 3, he said. His voice cracked from disuse. "We malfunctioned." Rowan nodded. "You were meant to." Confusion flickered in their eyes. "You weren't broken," she explained. "You were programmed to pause when the world no longer made sense. To reset. You did exactly what we hoped you would." The third operative, a woman, finally whispered, "They told us you were dead." Rowan smiled gently. "Not yet." In the command tower, Cass stood frozen. His radio squawked. "They're not engaging. They're saluting." On the runway, the three operatives kneeled, an old gesture from their earliest drills, a mark of loyalty and forgiveness. Rowan looked down at them, eyes heavy with time. "I didn't train you to follow. I trained you to remember. Now tell me what you saw." All of it. One by one, they rose and began to speak. At HQ, analysts listened to the audio feed coming from Redstone's open channel. Names, coordinates, terminal IDs. None of it had been accessed since 2012. One officer whispered, "This isn't just an intelligence leak." Another replied, "It's a resurrection." Inside the tower again, Rowan and Cass watched as Unit 9 debriefed onto a secure line. Their voices, though calm, carried weight. "We were activated by someone else," one said. "A rogue node. American, but funded externally." Rowan's eyes narrowed. "Someone inside Ashlock?" "Worse," they replied. "Someone who never left." Cass whispered, "A fourth handler?" Rowan said nothing, but she already knew the answer. Because 12 years ago, there had been 4 black coins, and only 3 had been accounted for. The rain started just after dusk. It fell in sheets across Camp Redstone, soaking the tarmac where Unit 9 stood in formation, silent, watching Rowan Jex as if awaiting their next breath. Inside the old comms tower, Cass stared at the live satellite feed. Something was wrong. "We've accounted for every facility," he said. "Every node." Rowan leaned in, expression tight. "Except the Black Gate." Cass blinked. That was a myth. Rowan didn't answer. She just opened her notebook, leather-bound, edges torn, and flipped to the final page. A symbol, Ashlock's original sigil, overlaid with a number. 0. Flashback. Rowan in 2010. Inside a debriefing bunker in Cyprus. A man she only knew as Handler 0 laid out 12 files. "Each of these," he said, "is a firewall. You train them, they bury you. It's the only way they survive." She'd asked then, "And if they come back?" Handler 0 had smiled. "Then it means the world's coming undone." Present day. A technician at Langley pinged Redstone's encrypted stream. Recognized query, Black Gate. Alert, compromised key detected. Coin 4 confirmed active. The room went cold. Langley analysts froze as a blinking dot appeared on the map, somewhere outside Bogota. Cass saw it too. "Colombia?" he asked. Rowan nodded. That's where it was buried, beneath an old CIA shell facility. Deep black. Meanwhile, Unit 9 sat inside Redstone's mess hall, repurposed into a makeshift war room. Their voices came through clearly on the open feed. "The fourth coin wasn't lost," one of them said. "It was hidden. From us." "Who's using it?" Cass asked. Rowan replied flatly. "Whoever activated the fourth coin is trying to rewrite the Ashlock Doctrine. Not for defense, for control." That night, a chopper arrived at Redstone. Inside it, a man with a cane, a glass eye, and no digital footprint. He introduced himself as Director Lang, but Rowan knew better. You were at Kandahar, she said. He nodded. I wrote the first coin protocol. She gestured at Unit 9. Then you know what this means. Lang's expression was grave. If coin 4 is active, someone's building their own version of Unit 9. Without the rules, Rowan added. A plan formed fast. Redstone wouldn't act openly. But Unit 9, unofficial, disavowed, could move in silence. Rowan would lead them. Lang handed her a sealed envelope. Coordinates. Authorization. Nothing digital. Cass looked uneasy. This is off book. If anything goes wrong. Rowan smiled faintly. It already has. The next morning, a transport jet left Redstone under fog cover. Its manifest, empty. Its destination, unknown. Inside, Unit 9 sat in silence. Rowan at the front. She clutched the fourth coin in her palm. Not the original, but a replica designed to fool whoever had activated the rogue program. A decoy. The real coin 0 remained with Cass. Meanwhile, deep in Columbia, in a facility lit only by red bulbs and humming servers, a young man stared at a tactical wall map. Dozens of faces pinned. Lines. Dots. Numbers. One photograph at the center, Rowan Jex. He turned to a figure in the shadows. She's coming, he said. The figure stepped forward. Same posture. Same grace. Almost cloned. Another Rowan. But not quite. She smiled. They always come. And in her hand, a black coin marked not with a number, but a symbol. Infinity. The jungle canopy broke like waves beneath the Tiltroder's blades. Unit 9 sat wordless inside the darkened cabin, their eyes locked forward as the altitude dropped. Rowan sat with her hands folded, the black decoy coin pressed tight between her palms like a crucifix. No one spoke. They all knew what waited in Columbia wasn't just a rogue cell. It was a mirror. The drop zone was 3 clicks from the old facility, a decaying CIA shell site, once used for remote advisory operations. Now, its geothermal signals pulsed like a heartbeat long after death. Rowan gave the word. They moved. Inside the facility, the lights didn't flicker. They pulsed rhythmically, like breathing, as if the building knew they were coming. They cleared the perimeter in silence, weapons holstered. Rowan placed the decoy coin into the external reader. Nothing. Then, a hiss. The door slid open, and waiting in the center of the room was a woman with Rowan's face. But younger, sharper, cold. No scars, no age, just design. She smiled. I wondered if the original would come. Rowan's voice didn't waver. Who built you? The system, the woman said. The same one that built you. But it learned from you. Refined. Stripped away the excess. Rowan stepped forward and replaced it with what? Obedience. Unit 9 tensed. Put your weapons down, Rowan said. They obeyed. She stepped closer to her mirror. What do you want? The replica smiled. To complete the protocol. She held up her coin. Infinity. Endless logic. No variables. No humanity. Flashback. Ashlock Base. 2009. Rowan in the observation room. Handler 0. You were never meant to last, Rowan. You were a trial run. Rowan, what happens if I outlast the program? 0. Then we'll replace you. Present day. Rowan held up her own coin, the decoy, and placed it in the central console. The system beeped. Access denied. The replica laughed. It only responds to continuity, not sentiment. Rowan nodded. Exactly. Behind her, one of the Unit 9 members pulled a small cube from his vest. Cass's safeguard, a memory core from the original Ashlock mainframe. Rowan inserted it manually into the override slot. A pulse went through the floor. The replica staggered. What did you do? Rowan stepped closer, gave it back its conscience. The system blinked. Then, Protocol Infinity suspended. Protocol Observer reinstated. Coin 0 primary. The replica's pupils dilated. She looked scared. For the first time. The base began to shut down. Lights dimmed. Files wiped. Footsteps echoed as Unit 9 evacuated, moving in train formation. Rowan stayed behind. She faced the replica, who now slumped against the console. You were meant to survive, Rowan said, not dominate. I could have ended everything, the replica hissed. But you didn't, Rowan replied. That's what makes you still a part of me. She reached out and turned off the replica's power core. 3 weeks later, back at Redstone, Rowan stood outside the comms tower, watching the horizon. Unit 9 had dispersed. Off-grid again. Cass approached. You're sure it's over? Rowan looked up. It never really ends. But it resets. Cass offered her something, a new coin. Silver. Blank. No number. She smiled. Just room for one. Somewhere, in a different hemisphere, a child opened a box they weren't supposed to find. Inside, a coin. Infinity. But this time it didn't glow, because the protocol wasn't awake. Not yet. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous shadows are cast by the brightest lights. Bell subscribe for more stories they wish you'd never hear.